All right, folks, we're here with our YouTube channel, and today Christian McCollum and I are going to talk some 2024 recruiting. We thought we'd start to try and dig into that, and he and I will have kind of a show probably every week. We'll just see how recruiting goes and what kind of news is out there. But he and I will have a show every week just kind of discussing recruiting and what's going on. We've kind of handled a lot of the 2023, so I know a lot of people are curious about the 2024 stuff as well. So just thought we would kind of go through some positions and just kind of start talking about some names that Irish fans should start looking at and start watching film and kind of penciling in as potential prospects for 2024 recruiting. Jamie, when it comes to quarterback, Jamie, I'm sorry, Christian, I'm used to saying Jamie. Christian, when it comes to quarterback, it's kind of a strange situation because we're sitting here saying, is it going to be CJ Carr? Is he the 2024 quarterback, or is he going to be the 2023 quarterback? And that's the kind of thing that really is, I guess, the big question mark at this point. And I think initially we've talked to CJ, and CJ has said he would like to stay in the 2024 class. But, I know Notre Dame would love for him to reclassify. Whether he does or not is completely up to him. We'll have to see how that all unfolds. But would not surprise me if later down the road he did reclassify. If that happens, then some new names could pop up. We've got Sayin, we've got Puglisi. I mean, I think that those right now would probably be the only two that they seem to be the most interested in at this point. And who knows whether they're interested? I think it all depends on what happens with CJ Carr and his reclassification. Your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, quarterback dominoes go fast, right? So 2024 dominoes are already starting to fall. CJ was one of the big ones. And like you said, it remains to be seen if he's going to be 2024 or 2023. But Sayin's a guy, he's already been on campus 3 times. And now that when I say dominoes are falling fast, he's a kid that was looking at deciding maybe late fall. Now it sounds like maybe he'll decide early fall. And it sounds like there's a chance that, he could pull the trigger sometime this summer. Notre Dame was a school he was high on. Like I said, he visited 3 times. Texas is another school he was high on. I think Arch Manning has kind of taken them out of the race with an elite 2024 quarterback. And Georgia's kind of the school that's been sitting there for him that he's visited multiple times. And he could end up saying, hey, Notre Dame's got its guy. Texas has a guy in 23 that they're really going to be putting a lot of, invest a lot in. I think Georgia's probably my best option. So for Notre Dame, as they're sitting here trying to figure out what CJ Carr has to do, that could be a factor, because he's not going to wait around forever and someone scoops up his Georgia spot. So it'll be interesting. As far as Puglisi goes, he's a guy who's not operating on quite as an advanced time frame, right? He's still collecting offers. He came up to Invasion and he performed really, really well. And you really got to give him credit for that. I mean, when we were at Invasion, and it was no secret that the murmurs were going around that CJ Carr is going to commit. Ryan was aware of these rumors as he's out there. And it's kind of, it's got to be a little frustrating for a 16-year-old who's getting out there to perform in front of their dream school. You get there, day of your performance, you start to hear whispers that the kid next to you is committing. Yeah. But he did well there, turned some eyes. Then he went down and went to Alabama and Georgia, camped there, picked up offers from both of those schools. But I can promise you, he's keeping close tabs on the CJ Carr situation. He's aware that could change. I don't think Notre Dame, said that to him directly. But before CJ Carr committed, when Notre Dame was pretty aware he was going to commit, they did kind of tell them, hey, hang in there with us. Things will get clear, this summer. So that kind of, hinted that to them, maybe, 2024 is not closed down. If Notre Dame were to offer Ryan Puglisi, I think they would likely be the favorite. But like I said, he's already got big time offers from Bama, Georgia, Florida's coming through pretty heavily. Penn State's always been involved. I wouldn't count out BC. They've done a good job. They're going all in on him. He's a local kid. They feel like they have to have him. But Notre Dame is a school that he's always had his, eyes set on. And if they offered him, I think that, they would probably jump to the top of his list.
Yeah. I think I really like both those players. I think both of them are good players. Puglisi's got the big arm. He's got the big arm, and certainly a pretty darn good athlete too. A guy who moves pretty well. So could could be a threat running the ball as well. Sayan, I think, is more of a drop back type of quarterback. He can move in the pocket and things, but he's kind of more of a Drew Pine. I think he's got a little stronger arm, maybe a little more advanced than Drew Pine was. But I think that when you look at those two guys, either would be good options, especially with CJ Carr, if he were to reclassify. So we'll have to see how that one all unfolds. But moving on, we've got some running backs, and we with 2023, we don't know what the situation is going to be. Are they going to land another guy at this point? I think Jeremiah Love's really the only real option at this point. If they don't get Jeremiah Love, what will be interesting to see is if they expand the board, and we don't know. You and I will do something next week on 2023 and maybe some positions and things they need to look at. But as far as expanding the board, but if they don't get Jeremiah Love, it will be really interesting to see what happens at running back. It's going to be a very attractive spot for a running back coming in. And, I'm just kind of getting, I guess, educated on what's going on the 2024 guys. So I've just started kind of really watching film and watching a lot of film and trying to, get educated on these guys. And Christian, boy, I watched a lot of these running backs that Notre Dame has a shot at. And I really like these guys. I mean, these guys are really good players. I would put the guys that I'm mentioning a shade above anybody that Notre Dame really recruited this year, other than maybe Richard Young, of course. I think Richard Young's an outstanding player. I think Jeremiah Love is a great talent, but I don't think he's as natural as a running back as some of these guys are. I think he will certainly learn to be a really good running back, and when you look at his intangibles, he's a tremendous talent as far as speed and athleticism and that type of thing. But when I look for running backs, I like guys that that are just, it's obvious they were born to be a running back. And it was interesting when Kyron Williams was coming through, and Jamie and I were so high on Kyron, and it was for that reason. He looks like a running back. He looks like a guy that he was born to play running back. And so when I look at these guys, a lot of these guys remind me of that. We've got some names here like Anthony Carey. I really like this player. He's got tremendous feet. He reminds me a lot of Kyron as a runner, but he's probably a little bit more explosive and better top-end speed. He's just got really excellent natural running back instincts where he hits the hole and he just feels how the traffic is moving and can find his way through traffic. And he just has this really nice feel and this quickness to get through it. Turns very, very well, kind of like Kyron, can, turn on a dime. A very, very attractive player to me. What do you think on Notre Dame's chances here with this guy?
Yeah, like you said, elite level prospect, dozens and dozens of offers. I think he's up to 40 offers, right? DeLon McCullough has done a great job here. Chad Bowden's done a great job here. And this is one of the little key things you look for when you're recruiting, when you're following recruiting. He mentions Notre Dame to people that aren't covering Notre Dame. That aren't asking about Notre Dame, right? So when kids do that, that means they're interested because Notre Dame's top of mind no matter who they're talking to, right? Yeah. But at the same time, he's a kid who mentions a lot of big-time schools that are going to be hard to – even talking Ohio State, Texas, USC, Stanford, Oregon, all those schools. But Notre Dame's in the mix there, right? So he's – they're right there. You talked about how all talented all these guys are. That says a lot about the philosophy from Marcus Freeman and Coach McCullough here in terms of who they're going after. Now, Notre Dame's going to need to get him on campus. That's going to be important. He's already made some visits to some schools down south. He's even been up to Michigan State. So Notre Dame's going to need to get him on campus, hopefully for a game this fall. But the fact that he's mentioning Notre Dame, even when he's not talking to Notre Dame outlets, that shows that they're on his mind in a big way. You there, Mike?
What's that?
I lost you there for a second.
Oh, did you? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got you.
Yep. All right. Just making sure. All right. No, so the guy I want to talk about next is Jarrett Gibson. Really like this player. He's got that shorter, compact body, but he runs with really good power for his size. He's got really good, excellent running back instincts, finds the hole. He has the ability to move inside the hole. got really good top end speed. I think he's going to get even better. What I like, a lot of times I like these running backs with their short, choppy steps. And the reason why is it allows them to kind of cut through and jump cut and do all this stuff and get through the trash when there's a lot of bodies and things coming at him. And he has a really good ability to do that. I just, it'll be interesting because obviously this guy is going to be a guy that's got a lot of offers as well. And one of the top players. It seems like a guy that would go to LSU or Auburn or, Bama type of guy. But I really like the guy. I think he'd be a heck of a pickup for Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a kid. He goes to IMG and he's a standout at IMG's practices. Mm-hmm. So like their inter-squad games and stuff, he's like a star of that, which is literally the best of the best right there. He was committed to Florida for I think about 6 months. So that kind of gives you an idea of what he's interested in. He backed off that commitment. Georgia seems to be out in front now. And kind of in contrast, when you're talking about Carey, he's not a kid who talks a lot, and he doesn't always mention Notre Dame when he does talk. So it's kind of hard to get a sense. But I'll tell you this, Notre Dame feels like they have a good shot at it. They spent a lot of time down at IMG, and, I don't think all that time was focused on Carnell Tate. Matter of fact, I know it wasn't. So he's a kid that they've kind of, been showing a lot of interest to. But like you said, Mike, he's a kid that, he was committed to Florida. Georgia seems like they're out in front. Texas is another school. So another guy, Notre Dame will need to get him on campus in order to make it happen. But they feel like they're in pretty good shape where they are right now.
Another guy I like that has an offer from Notre Dame is Corey Smith, a guy up north. So maybe Notre Dame has a real shot at him. Been on campus. I really like this guy. This is the type of back that's going to end up, probably staying Midwest. And if he ends up in the Big Ten, I could see this guy being the first team all 10 big, all Big Ten running back. I could honestly see him. I think he's got that kind of potential. He's not the fastest guy out of this group, that's for sure. He doesn't have the amazing speed of some of these guys, but he's pretty darn good as far as his top end speed goes. But really, really outstanding instincts in the hole. Just really has a real natural feel for it. Runs real low to the ground, gets low and gets some power in his running. You can tell that he's a really well-coached player as well. He's got really good quickness to get through the hole as well. I just really like his balance too. When players hit him, they just bounce off him. And the best backs, that's what they have the ability to do, is absorb these hits and just kind of make people bounce off and they don't go down. And I really like that about his game. The other thing I like about him too is he's a north-south runner. There's no wasted movement. There's no, he's not dancing around. He's getting upfield constantly, but yet he does have the ability to turn left and right and make people miss. And I really think that his best football is ahead of him. I think he's one of the best running backs in the country. I know he's not going to be ranked that way because of where he's at, but I really like this guy, and I hope Notre Dame lands him because I think he's going to be a really talented player. What are your thoughts on him?
Of this group, he's probably the one they're best positioned with. As you mentioned, he's already been to Notre Dame, right? He came for the spring game. He had a trip scheduled for last month, but he had to scratch it. But, we don't think that has anything to do with his interest level. DeLon McCullum's done a great job here getting in on him. The thing with Notre Dame is they got in on him early. They showed him attention early. They got him to campus, which is always big. And now he's got a feel for Notre Dame. You talked about the family feel that he experienced when he was at Notre Dame in April. And that's good because they've kind of shown him what Notre Dame's about. So now it's not just something he has to think about, trying to get a feel for. He's been there. He wanted to get back. He will get back eventually. Like you said, Big Ten type kid. So he's already visited Wisconsin and Michigan State. He's talked about, trying to maybe venture out a little bit more, get down to Tennessee. That's a school that's offered him. I don't think he's been out to Michigan yet. So that's another one. But, Notre Dame, like I said, getting him on campus for the spring game was great to get him around that environment. He really, really likes the coaching staff, really likes the vibe at Notre Dame, and I wouldn't be surprised at all. He's the kind of kid that you could see coming back multiple times in the fall.
All right. Another guy that I love on film is Nate Palmer. Wow, this guy is a really, really talented player. At first, when you watch his film, he's got the long strides when he stretches out to run. That's always kind of been, I get a little bit leery of that because a long strider has a hard time usually kind of turning left and right. But then you watch as the film goes on, he's in, inside the tackles a lot, and he has the ability to make people miss. Very, very elusive player, extremely, extremely explosive player. In open space, he's just, tremendous, unbelievable player. I love his balance. He's only 180 pounds, but he handles hits well. I think his best football is ahead of him. I mean, he could be, I think, one of the top backs in the entire country, if not the top back. When it's all said and done, I really think his potential is really good. He looks like a lot of the Texas backs that we've seen in the past that, great speed and all this type of stuff. And what's weird is they end up going to like Texas and then they never do anything. And I never understand why. They just never really have great backs, even though every year they sign a guy like this. And for whatever reason, they never turn out to be these great players. But I like his potential. I think he's got a tremendous amount of potential. I don't know, the way Texas and Texas A&M are recruiting, Oklahoma's going to try and get in this race. Everybody else is going to too. It's going to be a tough pull, but it's shown some interest. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this is a kid that he felt like he was overlooked earlier in the process. A kid with a chip on his shoulder for sure. And he really blew up this winter and spring and really felt like he got everything that was coming to him. And it's a good chip on his shoulder, right? It's not like a frustrated or angry one. It's just, he uses that as real motivation, and all the offers started coming through this winter and spring. And it really feels like, but he's not done, right? He's one of those kids who really, really feels like he's the number one running back in the country and is going to work to prove it. Interesting kid, right? His father's an assistant coach. And so he was in College Station. He was going to school there, high school there last year. And then that coaching staff got new jobs. So he's no longer in College Station, but he's obviously very familiar with the Texas A&M program, been there for visits, been to Oklahoma State, SMU, hasn't taken a ton of visits, but from everything we can see, he seems like a Notre Dame type kid, right? Hasn't visited yet, but is aware of Notre Dame's history, what Notre Dame means, the academics, and he seems like the kind of kid who would really, really enjoy himself when he gets up to Notre Dame for a visit, which we would think is pretty likely. Again, DeLon McCullough's made this kid a priority. He understands that. These are kids that they were down in Texas during the evaluation period, showing their face for. And like I said, Notre Dame type kid. So he's the kind of kid that could come up, really enjoy himself, and then you see Notre Dame kind of shoot their way into that, top 5 or top 10, whatever it is, when he makes his cuts. He's not a kid who seems like he's in a hurry to end the process. Like I said, a lot of times when these kids, they feel like they're overlooked, then when the offers start coming in, they're not like ones to jump on them right away because they feel like they should have had those offers all along. And so he's a kid that'll kind of, seems like he'll wait a little bit, scout things out. And I think that's good for Notre Dame in terms of their chances of getting him up on campus this fall.
Love him. I think he's a tremendous talent. I'd love to have him. And the one thing that I think Notre Dame has lacked, we'll see what happens with Jeremiah Love, but they need a guy with big time speed, and this guy could bring it. He's got the ability to really stretch the field and hit the home run, but not just a fast guy either. He's a guy who's a really, really talented running back. Next guy I want to talk about, and Chris, I'm just going to put my vote in right now on this guy. I want this guy really bad. His name's Anias Williams. Came up and for camp. I was surprised he didn't get an offer early before he even got up to camp, but I suppose they knew it was coming. Dude, there's just so much to like about this kid. This is a guy who I just love him. He's just one of those Kyron types of players that it's just really, really, really important to him. You don't score 47 touchdowns in one season unless you're a really, really good player. And he's playing in a fairly good league. There are probably some guys who are maybe a shade better as far as an athlete goes than this guy, but you're not going to find a tougher, more physical, more intense kid. And I just think he's an outstanding football player. He's a better version of Kyron Williams. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, more explosive. He's a great receiver as well. Outstanding balance, great instincts as a runner. And I I would love to see this kid in Notre Dame's class in 2024. I think he's a tremendous talent. Your thoughts?
Yeah, when the invasion list came out, Jamie and I were together and we started looking at all the kids, and this kid was like, whoa, who the heck is this kid? You know what I mean? Like, he plays at a small school, so he kind of been overlooked. And we talked to his 7-on-7 coach Carter, prior to the camp. And basically, the kid only had one real offer, right? He had Nebraska way back. And then, he showed up at this camp, and his 7-on-7 coach saw him for the first time, and he started talking to him. And he's like, you only got one offer. He's like, yo, I can change that in a hurry. Right.
Yeah.
And so he started working with him, and they started going to camps. And sure enough, stuff changed in a hurry. I mean, he got an Alabama offer like 3 days before he showed up at Invasion. So it was pretty obvious, the talent level of this kid. And then he just tore it up at Invasion. We spoke with him afterwards, and, he wasn't cocky at all, but he wasn't surprised that he got the Notre Dame offer. And he just kind of has gone on a run all last month, and even before that, of just gathering big time offers one after another. Kind of similar to what we were talking about with Palmer, a kid that always thought he was, worthy of these types of offers. So not surprised, but still it's all coming at him really fast, right? Within a month you have, basically every offer in the country, having not had any of those earlier is overwhelming regardless of, how good you think you are. So he really liked Notre Dame. Talking to him, sometimes you talk to these kids, it's like they're 35 years old. Maybe even older. I guess I'm older than that now. Yeah. So a lot of these kids, they're like, they're more mature than me. Yeah, it's like they're more mature than me. I'm sitting there talking to this kid, and he's just so measured. And like I said, he's confident, smart enough to not want to come across as cocky and not cocky, but definitely a mature dude. Somebody that what Notre Dame has will resonate with him. When you come for Invasion, especially if I think he got there a day early, so he did kind of get a tour, but it wasn't like a full visit. Certainly wasn't anything you'd see on an official visit or anything like that. So last month and this spring for him was really just, making the camp circuit, picking up all these offers, showing everyone what you can do, and then, being able to set the table and say, all right, here are my options. And, he told me Notre Dame's a school he's definitely going to get back to this fall for a game. It's something that resonates with him. He's from Missouri, so it's not far away. And, I expect Notre Dame to be in that, but it's not going to be an easy race. Like I said, he's going to have every offer in the country that he wants. He'll likely have. So Notre Dame's going to have to battle to win this kid.
Yeah. It's crazy. You go look at his offers, and everybody's probably looking at this going, oh, how good is this kid? Dude, watch the film, man. Mm-hmm. Seriously, watch this kid's film. This kid is I love this kid. I really, really hope he ends up in Notre Dame's class, because this is the type of kid that not only is going to win you a lot of football games, but he's also going to push your room, right? Like Kyron did. He's a guy that his compete level is such that he's going to make every single other player in that room better, because he's going to be pushing. They're going to look at his work ethic and say, man, if I got to beat this guy out, I'm going to have to work as hard as this guy. And those are the players that you want. I love this kid. I really hope he ends up in Notre Dame's class. Last guy we're going to talk about today, we'll get to wide receivers next time around as well. But the last guy we're going to talk about today, Christian, is Brian Jackson. Interesting back. Dylan McCollum has talked about he really wants kind of a different, like different body types, different types of backs. And you can see where this guy fits in. This is a kind of an Audric Estime type of guy. Bigger back, bigger body, really physical, but he really plays light on his feet. He's not the fastest or the most explosive, but once he gets rolling, man, he's really hard to bring down. He's got really good balance. Even for a big back, he's got really, really good balance. And you really need to get like a big shot at him to bring him down, or multiple defenders. And the thing that's interesting, though, he does have, he can make you miss in space. And, I think it was interesting when we'd watch Audric, especially this year, he really showed that ability to make people miss in the hole. And when you look at Brian Jackson, he definitely has that ability as well. The one thing when you get the big backs, the thing that I've always thought is I want to see film, and we don't get to see it. I want to see film of how the guy looks like when somebody's in the backfield, because when that's when you can tell whether a big back is going to be effective or not, because a lot of those guys got to get ahead of steam before they can turn well left and right and get out of trouble. and there's just not enough film to see of this guy. Whether I'm sure there is, but it's just not on his highlight film. But there's not a whole lot of film where you see guys in the backfield and him having to make a split-second decision and get away from somebody. And that's usually the difference between whether somebody like this is a really great player or just an average player. So I'd like to see more film, but there's a lot to like about this guy. And he's going to be highly, highly recruited, of course. Very, very good player. And I'd love to see Notre Dame land him as a big back. I think he would be a very, very effective player, but it will be interesting to see. I think you'll see his recruiting kind of pick up as well. Your thoughts on this guy and Notre Dame's chances?
Yeah, maybe we'll send a message down to his offensive lineman, have someone miss an assignment or two.
Yeah,
so he can see looks like some disruption in his face.
Yeah.
So another guy that mentions Notre Dame kind of regardless of who he's talking to. Again, a good sign when you're not just talking about Notre Dame, when it's a Notre Dame reporter asking questions about it. Yep. And Notre Dame fans got to get used to this. When Mark Freeman, when they talk about going to get the best players in the country, you're going to be going against the best programs in the country, and that means regionally. So this is a kid that he's also mentioned, visited, interested in Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, Bama, and then the national schools too, right? Ohio State, USC. So to get the best players in the country, those are the schools you're going to have to beat. And he's a kid, like I said, he's mentioned Notre Dame all the time. He wants to get there for a visit, but he wants to get to all these schools. So, and he's also a kid that's probably going to want to cut his list relatively soon. So when someone cuts their list soon and they haven't made a ton of visits, it probably give you an idea. Those are the schools he's going to be looking at. These, the powers regionally and then the powers nationally. So then it's going to be a race of, all right, we got to get this kid up for a game in the fall. Guess what? Ohio State wants to get him up for a game. USC wants to get him up for a game. You better believe Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, those schools, those assistant coaches, they need to get him for a game. So that'll be the challenge. But at the same time, the fact that Notre Dame's already kind of top of mind for him, if they can make this initial list, then that kind of cancels out a lot of the other noise from maybe some other schools that, probably do a good job recruiting, can take it some time. So if he cuts his list and Notre Dame's still there, say a top 12 or something like that, that'd be a good sign. And then the next step is to get him on campus.
Yeah, I like the guy. I think he's a really talented player. And some people will say, well, that's kind of an unfair criticism. But when you look at today's defenses, Christian, I mean, it's all about havoc. It's all about getting in the backfield, and you need to be able to show that you can make people miss in the backfield, because that's what everybody's going for. Defenses are getting more and more aggressive, and you're going to see more and more players in the backfield than you ever have. Hopefully at Notre Dame you won't, because you'll have a dominant offensive line. But this is a kid that if he goes to like a Alabama, a Georgia, hopefully a Notre Dame, he's going to be pretty good, because they're going to have really good offensive lines. And so we'll see. But when I look at this list at running backs, I'm just telling you, folks, don't sleep on Corey Smith, the kid from Wisconsin. I think he's a really, really talented player. He's not going to be ranked as high as these other guys, but I'm telling you, that guy's going to be a really good player. I love Nate Palmer. I think he's a better version of J.D. Price, which says a lot, because I'm a big J.D. Price fan. I think he's a better version of him. And Anias Williams, I love this kid. You land 2 out of those 3, and I'd be thrilled, absolutely thrilled with that. I wouldn't be more happy. And it'd be the 2 best backs Notre Dame had signed in a long time, in my opinion. I love this guy. I love these running backs, and I can't wait to see whether Notre Dame can stay in the race, get these kids on campus, and hopefully they'll sign at least 1, if not 2 or 3 of these guys.
Yeah, all right. It's worth noting, like you said, Mike, this is a priority A list, right? Yeah. Everyone on this list is a priority A, in the fact that you're looking at a bunch of kids from Texas and Florida, and then Corey Smith. Corey Smith is not a backup plan. This is not a plan B kid.
Not at all.
Like I said, he's a Midwestern kid, and he's been there already. But don't think, they couldn't get, Nate Palmer or Jarrett Gibson, so they settled for Corey Smith. That's not the case.
Yeah, regardless of where Corey Smith is going to be ranked, I'm telling you, folks, watch this kid. He's going to be a really, really talented player. So, all right, that's going to be it for this episode of our YouTube Live. If you've not a member of Irish Sports Daily and you want to find out more about all this stuff, you can go to irishsportsdaily.com. click on the subscribe or the premium section and subscribe there. If you're not a member of our YouTube channel, you can subscribe there. It's completely free. All it does is kind of alert you to let you know that we got videos. And then, of course, it will show up in your options down there when you go to YouTube. You'll see us a lot more if you subscribe to us. So click the subscribe button. Hope you enjoy that. Next time, Christian and I will be talking wide receivers, and we'll probably talk some 2023 expanding the board. So look for that next week as well. Hope you enjoyed that, folks. We'll talk to you soon. Go Irish.